All right, Bruchim Habayim. Welcome everybody to the Shiur in Parsha. This week, of course, is Parshas Vaera, the second Parsha in Chumash Shmos. If anyone would like to sponsor a Shiur on Thursday night, please get in touch with me. Let me know. The Shiur on Thursday night are available for sponsorship too. If you'd like to sponsor, please let me know. Thank you. Tonight's Shiur begins with the words of the Torah right after Moshe Rabbeinu complains about his mission. And we're going to begin by focusing on those first few words of the Parsha. In order to do that, we're going to go to a share. Right now, we're going to bring down the psukim that are available to us. Here, it should be here. It's not here. We'll get it in a second. 1 minute. Go to this. Should be fun a bit. All right. It's time to get to. Enlarge it. Regular size. Okay. And let's see if it comes up now. It should be coming up now. Here it is. Okay. So you're going to see in front of you now the psukim that begin this week's Sedra. This week's Sedra begins with these words: "Vayidaber Elokim el Moshe, vayomer Elav ani Hashem." And Hashem spoke to Moshe, but the word that is used to speak to Moshe is not the word Yud Kei Vav Kei. It's not the name of Hashem. Instead, it's the name Elokim. And we know that whenever it says Elokim, it means the Midas Hadin. That's number one. Midas Hadin means the attribute of justice. In addition, the word that is being used for Hashem speaking to Moshe, you'll notice at the beginning of the sentence, is Vayidaber. By the end of the sentence, it's Vayomer. So first of all, we have a contrast between the word Vayidaber and the word Vayomer. Secondly, at the beginning of the pasuk, it says Vayidaber Elokim El Moshe, which is the Midas Hadin, and Vayomer Elav Ani Hashem, I am Yud Kei Vav Kei, and we know that Yud Kei Vav Kei is Midas Harachamim, the attribute of mercy. So we have two anomalies in this particular pasuk. First, it says Vayidaber, which is one form of speech, and the other one is Vayomer, which is to say. The second anomaly is that at the beginning it says Elokim, and at the end it says Yud Kei Vav Kei Hashem. Rashi comments on this. We're not going to read the Rashi, but I'm going to speak it out with you. Rashi comments on this that the word Vayidaber is a lashon kosher. Just the word itself is a word with consonants that are very strong consonants. The word daber, it's got two very powerful sounding consonants at the beginning, the dalid and the bays, which are strong. The word vayomer is made up of a much softer form of talking, omar. Just the letters themselves are much softer. In addition, as we noted, Elokim is Midas Hadin, and Yud Kei Vav Kei is Midas Harachamim. So why is Hashem speaking to Moshe with such a strong terminology? And Rashi mentions Diber Ito Koshos. He spoke with him very strong words. Why? We're going to go back and we're going to see. We go back in last week's Sedra, and in the third from the last pasuk in last week's Sedra, Vayoshav Moshe El Hashem, Moshe returns to God, Vayomer, he says, Aleph Daled Nun Yud, Lama Harayosa Lo Amazel Lo Mazeh Shlachtani. Why did you do bad to this nation? Why did you send me? Umei Oz Basi El Paro Ledaber B'Shmecha. From the moment I came to Paro to speak in your holy name, Heira Lo Amazeh, it's gotten more evil, more difficult for this nation. And you didn't save them. Moshe Rabbeinu is speaking to God And he's saying to Hashem, Lama Ariosa Lama Zeh. Why did you do bad to this nation? Lama Zeh Shlachtani. Why did you send me? You haven't done what you said. And I told you from the beginning, Moshe is reminding Hashem, I'm not the guy for the job. I can't speak. Look, ever since I came, things got worse. So Vayoma Hashem al Moshe. This is the last passage of the lesson said. Very interesting. Vayoma Yud Kei Vav Kei Hashem al Moshe. Ata Sira. Translate. Now you will see Asher Eres Paro. What I'm going to do to Paro. Ki biyad chazakah yishalchem. He's going to send them out with a mighty hand, meaning with my mighty hand, he's going to send them out. And with a mighty hand, with the hand of God being mighty against him, he is going to send them out of the nation. And now Hashem says, look how you spoke to me. You spoke to me in such a harsh way. I'm speaking back to you in a harsh way. You had no right to do that. Ani Hashem. Now, in Shema every day, Rabosai, we say a very interesting combination. We say Shema Yisrael, hear, O Israel, Hashem, Yud Kei Vav Kei, Elokeinu, Midas Hadin, Hashem Echad. That God is one. Sometimes we're under the impression that the attribute of mercy and rachamim, which is what Yud Kei Vav Kei represents, but sometimes, as we know, Hashem has to put judgment on the world. Notice, at the very beginning of creation, what does it say? Bereshis bara Elokim. The Midas Hadin creates the world. Bereshis bara Elokim. Why did it say Bereshis bara Hashem? Interesting. If you'll take a look at Perek Beis in Bereshis, you'll see that it says Biyom Asos Hashem Elokim Eretz V'Shamayim. On the day that Hashem Elokim made the heavens and the earth. You look at the Rashi over there, you'll see that Rashi explains. At first, Hashem wanted the world to know that this is a world of din. But it's clear, human beings could not survive if the world is purely run by din. We know in our own hearts that if we would be judged exactly kedasu kedin, because because there's no one who doesn't have fault or sin, consequently, we wouldn't be able to last at all. So therefore, Hashem created the world with judgment that's merciful. But when Moshe Rabbeinu goes a little bit beyond just the merciful, and he complains, Hashem says, I want you to know, I'm going to speak with you tough talk, but you shouldn't think that that's all I am. Because Vayomer Elov Ani Hashem, I am Hashem. Just like we say, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, the Rachamim, and the Din, Hashem Echad. All of that is one. It's all part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That sometimes we only see the Din, but we should know that Hashem is Racham Badin. And Moshe Rabbeinu is getting it back from Hashem. You should not have spoken and said, Loma Hariyos Amazah. Okay, before we go any further, an important point has to be made at this juncture. Moshe Rabbeinu is the leader of the Jewish people. He's the ultimate king of the Jews, so to speak. He's the one who took them out of Mitzrayim. He's the one who was the helper of Hashem to bring the Torah to the Jewish people. He was the one who commanded us and taught us the Torah. Torah Tziva Lana Moshe. If you ask any rabbi who knows Torah, was Moshe perfect? What's the answer? Absolutely not.
No.
Absolutely not. Here's a perfect example. Hashem is demonstrating at the beginning of the Parsha that begins the Exodus through miraculous intervention of God with the 10 plagues, 7 of which are in this week's Sedger, you should know from day one, Moshe Rabbeinu is not perfect. He's a person with faults. We saw it in last week's Sedger. We're seeing it again here. He was a human being, a person with faults. As we spoke last week, the Rambam in Hilchos Tshuva, in Perek points out that he says that every human being, every Jew has the ability to be like Moshe Rabbeinu. What do you mean he has the ability to be like Moshe Rabbeinu? That's impossible. We can never be as great as him. He gave us the Torah. Everything is secondary from him. No, it means we could be a human being like him. And just as he reached tremendous potential, and even though he had faults, he was able to overcome them, as we spoke in the Shiur this week about the famous story about the artist that painted Moshe and made it appear is based on his accurate description in the caricature, or I shouldn't say caricature, but in the way he drew him, that Moshe had terrible, terrible faults. But Moshe Rabbeinu explained to the artist, yes, I have those faults, but I worked hard at overcoming them. You should know the famous story about my Rosh Hashanah of Moshe Zatzal, that someone once came to him and he said, you know, I can't get over the amount of patience you have and the calmness you show to everyone. You're so pleasant and calm. How do you get like that? And Moshe Feinstein Zal said, I want you to know I have a tremendous temper. The person was flabbergasted.
Yeah.
He said, yes, I by nature, I have a tremendous temper, but I've worked all my life at controlling it. And by working at it, he succeeded. And that's why it starts off by telling us that when we're dealing with miraculous events that are about to take place, we're dealing with a human being who has faults. And we'll see more of that as we go on. We'll come back to that theme in a few minutes. I want to go now to this pasuk, which, of course, these two psukim that we're about to read now, therefore you should say to the Jewish people, Ani Hashem, now here come these 4 special Lishonos Shel Geula in these psukim over here. Here it goes. I will take you out from under the burdens of Egypt. That's number 1. And I will save you from their enslavement. And I will redeem you with an outstretched arm and with great judgments. And I will take you to me to be a people. Okay? There is a 5th statement, which we'll see in the next pasuk, where it says, I will take you to the land which I lifted up my hand to Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and I will give it to you as a morasha ani Hashem, which we discussed last year in the Shiur. I'm not going to focus on that. I want to focus on these 2 psukim. And for this, I'm going to go with you to another share. Now, before I get to the other share, Rabosa, what I'm about to show you is based on the terminology that we see in front of us in terms of the redemption of the Jewish people. But these words of redemption were only said that it's going to take place after the plagues come in. And so we're going to go now to a different share to get a picture of what these words are talking about and what the plagues are talking about. And for that, we go to the chart that you're going to see in a moment. Here we go. Okay. We are looking here at psukim from Bereshis Tes Vav and from Shmos Perek Aleph. Shmos Perek Aleph, I'm sorry, it's not Perek Aleph actually, it's Perek Vav here, my mistake. That's not Aleph. It starts with Shmos Aleph, but I don't know how that got in there. It's Perek Vav. Okay. It's Shmos Vav, and it speaks as follows. But we'll get to Vav in a minute. Let's start with Bereshis Tes Vav. I want to go back to what is known as the Bris Bein HaBesarim. These psukim that we're about to see are the words of the covenant between the pieces. Literally, the covenant between the pieces. Avraham Avinu has a vision, and in the vision, he has a vision of Hashem commanding him to go and take 3 types of animals and cut them in half, bring them as a carbon and walk between them. And then Hashem says to Avram in this dream, here it is. Vayomel Avram, he says to Avram, Yodoa Teda Ki Ger Yi Ezarach. Now the words that are in italics and bold are the words that we're going to focus on. Yodoa Teda Ki Ger Yi Ezarach Be'eretz Lolehem. First of all, you're going to be a ger. Ger Yi Ezarach. You're going to be a ger. You're going to be a stranger in a land not yours. That's the first step. Secondly, va'avadum. They are going to be enslaved. In the land that's their strangers, those people will enslave them. That's step 2. And step 3, here it is, Ve'inu osam. And they will afflict them. So we have 3 steps. Ger, Avodim, Inu Osam. And this is going to be for 400 years. And the 400 years, of course, applies from the time of Yitzchak's birth. Actually, goes back to Avraham Avinu, because it was for the time that we were strangers in the land of Israel, even when Avraham and Yitzchak were in the land of Israel. So it's 400 years that we were there. Of course, we were only there 210 years, but that's because we're counting from Yaakov going down. But going back 190 years to Avraham Avinu, we have 400 years. And then it says, I'm going to judge them. Those of you who recognize this pasuk, is because it's said in the Haggadah. And right after these words are V'hisha Amdalav Oseinu. Okay, that's the pasuk by Avraham. So let's review. By Avraham, it says you're going to be Hashem. He tells him you're going to be a ger, right? Then, secondly, Va'avadum, you're going to be enslaved, and thirdly, Ve'inu Osam. Thirdly, they're going to afflict them. Okay, let's take a look at Shmos now. In our Sedra this week, the pasuk says, "Vayosimu olav sarei misim." Oh, this really is Shmos Aleph. I'm sorry, my mistake. It is Shmos Aleph because these psukim that I'm showing you, I don't know. These psukim that I'm showing you are the psukim from the beginning of Shmos. Yeah.
Well,
beginning of Shmos. Last week's Sedra. Back in last week's Sedra, I'm going to get to our Sedra in a few minutes.
Okay.
In last week's Sedra, it says the first thing that Paro did was Vayosimu alav sarei misim. Okay, that both said. Sarei misim means officers of tax. Okay. Paro is the paradigm of anti-Semitism and affliction of the Jewish people. He knows that the first thing you have to do to enslave and destroy a people is to first get the populace upset with them by making them feel like strangers. If you make them feel like strangers, that they don't belong in this land, you will be able to overcome them. That's why when Hashem said to Avram, Ki ger yi yazaracha, the first thing Paro does is he puts a Jew tax. Jews have to pay a special tax, or Jews have to wear an armband, or Jews have to wear a special hat, or Jews can only live in certain areas. All of these things identify the Jews as strangers in the land. And if you can get the government to make the Jews strangers, there's a guarantee that not long after that are going to come the next steps. And that's exactly what Hitler Yimach Shemo V'Zichro did, and what every other anti-Semite who tried to harm the Jewish people and get rid of them. It starts with Sarei Misim. You make them feel like strangers. Next, it says afterwards that in Pasuk Yedimah, which we are now going to go to, the Pasuk says, Vaya avidu Mitzrayim as Bnei Yisrael b'Farah. The children of the people of Mitzrayim enslaved the Jewish people with hard labor. That's the second step that was said here to Abraham, va'avodu. First, they only gave them taxes. Then they made them slaves. And third, Vayom el Mitzrayim, here we go, to this pasuk over here. Okay. Vayom el Mitzrayim lam yaldos Irios. And the king of Mitzrayim said to the Jewish midwives, Asher Shema Achas Shifra v'Shem Hashem is Pua, he said to them, Vayomer, when you help the Jewish women give birth, I want you to look at the birth stool. In Bain who? If it's a boy, Vahamitem also. You kill him. Third step, Inu, affliction. They started with making us gerim, Sorei Nisim. Then they went Va'avodim, and they shall enslave us, Vayavidu. And then Vahamiten also. You should kill him. Geirus Avdus and Inui. Rabosai. Remember those three terminologies because that is the way Rav Shamshon Ferl Hirsch helps explain the 10 plagues, 7 of which we're going to read in this week's Sedra. We're going to do it right now. Look at this chart. Okay? We're going to show you. Oh, yeah, well, I'll show you the whole thing. Okay? All right. Look at this chart. We'll see the note in a minute. We are about to go into the 10 plagues. You could ask, what's the midah keneged midah of all this? Mm-hmm. What is the measure for measure of all these things? Right? We could put right here, you know? We could write midah. Let me pick that up. Whatever. It's not writing it for some reason. Doesn't want to do it. Let me see. No, it doesn't want to do it. Okay. Oh, there we go. Just when they don't want it. Right? Okay, Mida. Oops. Keneged. Mida. Okay. What is the measure for measure of these? Now notice, we have a chart here which says Geirus, Avdus, and Inui, making things like strangers, enslavement, and affliction. Let's look at the 10 plagues. Dam. The first plague was blood. That's a plague that makes you feel like a stranger. We'll describe why in a minute. Sardeya is a plague which makes you feel like a slave. We'll see why. Kenan is a plague of affliction. Now let's explain these three. Dam, blood. Now both sides, we all know it. When you go to a land, you're traveling.
Don't do the water.
Don't drink the water. It's true.
Yeah.
Unless you're slowly going to get used to it, you should not drink the water. You have to, in Eretz Israel, for some people, until they get used to it, they have to boil the water because it's got chemicals in it that the New York water doesn't have. Well, the New York water has chemicals that the Israeli water doesn't have. Either way, it's a problem. You have to buy bottled water. So if the whole Egypt, all the water turns to dam, you Egyptians made the Jews feel like strangers in their land. I want you to know, I'm going to make it that you're going to be a stranger in your land. You can't drink the water in your own land. That's a definite sign of you being a stranger in your own land. And that's why you're getting punished, neither connected, neither, because you made the Jews feel like strangers, you're going to be feel like strangers. Secondly, you made the Jews feel like slaves. Now, what's the psychology behind enslaving another people? So there are a number of psychologies that are work over here. The first simple one is, I am better than you. You are subservient and beneath me as a species. Oh, really? You're going to enslave the Jews because you think they're a lower form? I am going to show you that you are even lower than the Tzfardeya. What's Tzfardeya? Rav Shamshon Shofar so beautifully explains the word Tzfardeya. It comes, I will say, from two words. Okay, two words. Okay. Safar, which in Aramaic means Safra de Marato. Those of you who are familiar with colloquialisms in Jewish life, which the Gemara speaks about all the time, that before one davens, they shouldn't go specifically to greet people. If you meet people in the street, you have to say good morning, of course, 100%. But you shouldn't, before davening, go around, glad handling everybody and saying good morning. First daven, then you'll say good morning. Safar means morning. Safra. Da means knowledge. The frog knows the light changing. When a frog senses that the morning, the light has come, they dive under the water. They may be sitting very comfortably, croaking away on their lily pad, but as soon as you appear, bingo, they immediately disappear. They're so timid and so afraid of anything. And this timid little nothing is going to enslave you. You Egyptians made the Jews feel like slaves. You are going to be enslaved by the frog. And then we come to Inui. Inui means affliction. You physically afflicted the Jews? Oh, I'm going to have Keenan destroy your lives. You won't be able to move, the lice will be all over you. You won't be able to, it will be impossible. You'll scream bloody murder. Get rid of this. You won't be able to until Hashem decides to take it away. So the first thing is, we notice Mida connected Mida by Dam, by Tzfardeya, by Shina. Next we go. Orov. Orov is a mixture of wild animals. The Bosai, within 100 miles of where we live, you've got many, many, many wild animals. Many. Some of the wild animals are more timid than others, but there are plenty of animals that would not hesitate to eat a human being if they got the chance. Not more than 100 miles from where we live. No matter where you live, in Israel, in America, I don't care where you live. You live in Florida, it doesn't matter. Within 100 miles of where you are, you have animals that will eat you. And the reason that they don't come into your habitat is because they're afraid of you. Hashem made a covenant with Noah when he left the ark, that umarachem v'chitchem niyir al chayas hasoda, that your fear and dread will be on all the animals. What holds back the animals? The civilization. Even when you go in the forest and build a campfire, that will scare away the animals. They don't want to have anything to do with you. They're afraid of you. But the wild group of beasts came to Egypt to demonstrate your strangers in your own land. They're coming from the wild habitat and they're making you strangers. So that's another. Neither connected neither of Galus. Avdos. Dever. Dever is a pestilence. The pestilence came and killed all the animals. Because what made you think that you were better than the Jews? I have flocks of animals. I'm a wealthy Egyptian owner of flocks, a sure sign of wealth. And my animals make me superior to you because you don't have those animals. You're working for us. And our possessions make us better than you. And so we have a right to enslave you. The Dever came and killed their wealth of animals. And so they were no longer able to utilize that as a reason to enslave the Jewish people. Neither can it be. And finally, Shchin, boils. Boils is a physical affliction. You afflicted the Jewish people, you're going to be afflicted with boils. Let's go to the next one. Boro. Boro is hail. In Egypt, it hardly ever rains, let alone hail. Doesn't hail in Egypt, especially the hail that the Pasuk describes. That there were icicles like big balls with fire in the middle. This is totally out of character. for the land of Egypt. You are strangers in your own land. You made the Jews feel like strangers. You are now strangers. Arba, the locust. What makes you think you have the right to enslave another human being? Because you're a landowner? You're very wealthy because you own acres and acres of fields, Egyptian cotton, and so on. Along comes the locust, and there was nothing left when they went through. It consumed every last bit of their wealth. You cannot enslave a people because of your wealth. Your wealth is going to be disappearing because you treated them like slaves. You need to connect it neither. And finally, Koshef, Rabosai, there is nothing worse than living in the dark. And when we talk about dark over here, we're talking about a darkness not only of the soul, but a darkness that you can't see in front of you. You are so afraid to move, you will not move. You will not move. Because you don't know where you're going to be going. And you can even feel the darkness. It's awesome that when a person is thrown into darkness, they're afraid to walk. And here they were afraid too. And you afflict the Jewish people, now your entire body is afflicted. And finally, Makas Becholos, the destruction of the firstborn, which encapsulated all three of these things. Now, we're going to see why in a minute. Let's take a look at the Arba Lashono Shel Geula. The first one is not the Go'alti. The first one's the Hotzeisi. Notice it's backwards. I want to explain why. Now, Shams Shafar Hirsch explains so beautifully. Look, Rabbi say, if I asked you, which is the worst of these three? Being made to feel like a stranger, enslavement, or physical affliction? Which is the worst of the three? Well, it's clear. Being killed, physical affliction is the worst. So Hashem says, first of all, I want you to know, I'm going to take you out from under the burdens. You're not going to be afflicted anymore. The first thing I do is take you out of affliction. Secondly, I'm going to save you from their work. I'm going to save you from their work. That's the avodah. And then the Ga'alti, I'm going to redeem you that you're not going to be considered a stranger anymore. You're going to be your own boss. And finally, I'm going to take you to me to be a nation. It's interesting to note, people ask, what is the secret of the longevity of the Jew? Mark Twain wrote an entire epistle about this, about how the Jew manages to exist. It's an enigma. Leo Tolstoy wrote about the unusual longevity of the Jewish people. They weren't able to get their finger on what is it about the Jewish people that defies all other societies. Every other society in the world, it arises, it has its spring and summer, as Toynbee once described it, the seasonal theory of history, and then it has the fall and the winter, it disappears. The Jews never disappear. They're always there. They're always coming back and back and coming. And today, with our own land, returning it for 2,000 years, unheard of in the history of the world. You know why? Because our nationhood is not constituted in a landed aristocracy. If you take the Greeks off the island of Greece, in a short time, they stop being Greeks. You take the Phoenicians away, the Egyptians away, the Syrians away, the Romans away, you take them away from their land, in no time at all, you don't see any Romans anymore. There aren't any Romans. And even the vestiges of history that they may have passed on in terms of their so-called wonderful democracy idea, which certainly is better than anything else that's been around, but nevertheless, you don't see Romans walking the street in togas. Yeah, I know on the college campus, yeah, I'm aware, but that's foolishness. The fact is that there are no Greeks and Romans of that society walking around, but the Jews are intact. They're walking around with the same talis and tefillin, the same mezuzah, the same Pesach, the same Sukkot, the same Hanukkah, the same thing, because our historical identity as a nation is not dependent on the land, because even when we weren't on the land for 2,000 years, close to it, we managed to survive because of because I took you to me as a nation. And therefore, our nationhood is constituted in God and not in any land. We're going to go to the final points on this particular Mida connected Mida. Note, the first three makas are from below the ground. You see that? Dam, Sardeya, and Kenan came from below the ground. The second three come from on the land, the mixture of wild beasts, the pestilence, and the boils. And finally, the last three were from above the ground, the hail, the locusts, and the darkness. Next, the first two of each set had a warning. If you look in the Chumash in this week's Sedger, you'll see before the Dam, Hashem told Moshe to warn Paro. Before the Tzardeya, he told Moshe to warn Paro. By the Kenan, there was no warning, because the Kenan was a punishment for not listening to the first two. Orov, there was a warning. Dever, there was a warning. Shchin, no warning, punishment for not listening to the first two. Boro, a warning. Arba, a warning. Choshech, no warning, punishment for not listening. Makas b'choros, the ultimate punishment for not taking the lesson of all of these. And consequently, of Hirsch's beautiful Mida connected Mida explanation of the plagues is something we need to inculcate within our minds to understand the nature of Jewish history and to get a handle on what the Torah is teaching us through the depth of Hashem's wisdom in warning, punishing, and demonstrating that he's Hashem below, on, and above the earth. Okay, we're going to go back to our original psukim. I'm going to stop this year, and we're going to go back to the new Shiur, the Shiur that we started with to begin with, and we're going back to the psukim. Here we go. Okay. All right, so we came to the psukim. Here. So let's go to the Shiur over here. Are we on the psukim? No, all right, okay. Now, all right, we have the fifth one, of course, of Ha'aretz. I'm going to bring you to the land which I lifted up my hand. I'll give it to you as a Morasha. It's all very quickly. In passing, the word Morasha only appears twice in the Chumash. Once Torah Tzivalon and Morasha Kilas Yaakov, and the other one by the land of Israel, which demonstrates that the two are inexorably intertwined. All right. It says they didn't listen to Moshe, and Hashem tells Moshe, come to Paro, and so on and so forth. Now watch this. All of a sudden, by Shani, right over here. Okay. Notice we're starting at Shani, all of a sudden, in the middle of the narrative about the excitement about the plagues and they're going to come and it's going to be so on and so forth. All of a sudden, there's an introduction. Eile Roshei Beisavosam. These are the heads of their father's house, and it starts Bnei Reuven, before Yisrael, Reuven, and then it says his family. Then Bnei Shimon, it mentions his family, and then it says Bnei Levi and their family, and then it goes into Levi in depth. Gershon, Kahas, Merari, right? And Amram, who was from Kahas, was Bnei Kahas Amram, the oldest son of Kahas was Amram. Amram takes Yocheved, his aunt through marriage, from another uncle, not from his own, and she gives birth to Aaron and to Moshe, and the years Amram lived, and so on and so forth. And then it goes on to other family in Moshe's family. It talks about Aaron's family, Korah, and so on. Now, here's what I want to focus on. Look here. We've got two very interesting statements. Okay. Notice, what does it say here? Who Aaron and Moshe? This is Aaron and Moshe. Who was older? Aaron was older.
Hello.
So it's right that Aaron should be mentioned first. This is Aaron and Moshe that Hashem spoke to them, take out the Bnei Yisrael from the land of Egypt by their host. Next pasuk. Hey, Amidaber and Param and Mitzrayim, they're the ones who spoke to Pharaoh, king of Egypt. The Hotzi has Bnei Yisrael and Mitzrayim to take the Jews out of Egypt. Watch this. Look what it says.
Moshe.
Who Moshe the Aaron? Wait a minute. Wait a minute. You just told me here who Aaron and Moshe. What are you doing over here? Who Moshe the Aaron? Why does it do this? Why does the Torah first mention Aaron and Moshe here logically, and here change it to Moshe and Aaron? Okay, Rashi quotes. I'm not enough time to go to Rashi. I'm going to talk it out. Rashi says to teach you Sheshul and Hay, that
Equal.
they were equal. Sometimes Aaron comes first. Sometimes Moshe comes first. The fact that Aaron comes first isn't only because he's older, it's because he's equal to Moshe. And the fact that Moshe sometimes comes first is not because he's less than Aaron because he's younger, but he and Aaron were perfectly equal. There is a famous Torah that is mentioned by Rav Moshe Feinstein Zal to explain Rashi's comment that they were equal. How could you say they were equal? First of all, it says in the end of the Bible, and we say it every morning in Yidal, Lo come to Yisrael.
Moshe.
There's no one else like Moshe. And despite the fact that Aaron was an Ohev Shalom and a Rodeh Shalom, but he wasn't Moshe Rabbeinu. He was a great high priest, but he wasn't the one who took us out of Egypt, the one who gave us the Torah. He wasn't the one who stood on a mountain when Amalek was attacking us and lifted his hands up so that the Jewish people would look above and would ultimately win the war against Amalek. How could you say that they were equal? So Rav Moshe discusses what we have already mentioned, and he says a very interesting thing. Gemara Bava Basra has a story about Yosef who died. A rabbi, Rav Yosef, the children of Yosef, I don't know exactly the children of the son, or he himself, he died. And then he was brought back to life. So when he came back, they asked him, what did you see? He said, Olam hafuch le'isi. I saw an upside down world. What? You saw an upside down world? What was upside down about it? He said, those who were elyonim, those who were high, were very low. Elyonim lamata. The high ones were down. Tachtonim, the lower ones, were elyonim, were raised up. So the world was upside down. Shouldn't be the higher ones be higher, and here the higher ones were down, and instead of the lower ones being low, the lower ones were high. So he said that I saw an upside down world. His father said to him, no. He didn't see an upside down world. Olam Boro, he said. He saw an actual clear world because you misunderstood the interpretation here. When it said Elyonim, it didn't mean the ones who were really Elyonim. It meant the ones that people think are the high and mighty ones. People think these are the stars in the world. People think these are the ones you have to look to. But they're not. In their personal lives and in their general behavior pattern, just because they're called stars doesn't mean that they're actual stars. They may be the lowest of people, as we know very well from all those that are considered icons in the movie industry and so on. When it comes to their personal existence, in so many instances, they turn out to be nothing at all from this high and mighty level. While there are many people who in this world are considered very lowly, they're considered humble, not important, a beggar, maybe, or just all he does is sit and learn all day. What does he contribute to the world? You know? Some rabbi, anyway, I know do nothing. Some rabbi, And all of a sudden, it turns out in the Olam HaEmes, these Gedolei Israel are high and mighty up in heaven. You didn't think of them as being so high and mighty, but it turns out that up in heaven, they're considered very high. That's the clarity of vision. So what does this mean? This means that the way we look at the world sometimes is upside down. We sometimes think that the high ones belong there in this world, but really they're low. Well, the low ones are very high. Now, why is that? Because the lower ones achieved their potential. They maximized what they were given by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And so they got very high. Well, the high ones in this world, they didn't maximize the neshama potential they had, and consequently they were low. Back to our discussion. Who Aaron and Moshe? Who Moshe and Aaron? Both of these people maximized their potential. Aaron maximized his potential as a high priest, as someone who was an Oev Shalom and a Rodev Shalom. Oev es HaMakom, and Mekarvan LaTorah. Oev es Avriyos, and Mekarvan LaTorah. He brought them close to the Torah. He maximized what Hashem gave him in character and utilized it. We all have traits. The question is, can we utilize them to maximize ourselves to be the best we could possibly be? We're not comparing ourselves to anybody else. We shouldn't compare ourselves to anyone. No human being can compare himself to another human being. Compare yourself to what you could be rather than what you are. Because you can be more than you are, as we know. And consequently, that's why it says that Moshe and Aaron were interchangeable. Because the one trait that both of these people had, both of these great leaders of Jewish people, both these Gedolei Olam had, was that they were maximizing their potential every step of the way. They made themselves into the most that they could possibly be. At the beginning of the Seder, we saw that Moshe was being yelled at by Hashem, so to speak. He's getting an argument. Vayedaber Elokim el Moshe. He spoke harshly to him. And at the end, he's still Moshe Rabbeinu. He maximizes and got that message. And even though in last week's it says, Hello, Aaron Achicha Alevi, that Aaron Achicha Alevi became the Kohen Gadol. He maximized his potential. What a great idea for us to think about over Shabbos. What is it that we could do that would give us a maximum sort of step up to enable us to become a little bit more complete and more capable of living up to what we can be? None of us are supposed to be Moshe. What can't be Yisrael to Moshe? You're never going to be Moshe. Well, it's ridiculous to compare ourselves to Moshe. You know, there are many rabbis who are very much against some of the biographies that are written about Gedolim. Because sometimes when you read it, you get the feeling that, well, listen, 9 years old, he knew Shas by heart. By the age of 13, he was writing Svarim. By the age of 20, he was the Gadol Ador. And you think to yourself, I can't be that. I can't be that person. I can't do that. It's impossible. I'll never be that person. So they want you to know that these were people who actually had human foibles, idiosyncrasies, things that didn't give them the opportunity to become, that you would think would not give them the opportunity to be the great leaders that they were, but they maximized it. They worked at it, and we can too. And the idea of the correction of the midos that we have, which is what all the Torah really is about, it's called Tikkun HaMidos in so many ways, is in order to help us see that it's possible for us to step out of the box. It is possible for us to reign supreme over our desires and our emotions. Not always, maybe. You're not going to succeed 100% of the time. And if you don't succeed, so you pick yourself up, you try again. That's what Yom Kippur is all about. You know, get a chance to do it again. And if we can, and we work at it, no question that the Torah is giving us the idea that who Aaron and Moshe, and who Moshe, the Aharon. So we have some very strong ideas being taught to us over here in this week's Sedra. I want to mention another important thing, that comes from this entire section that we just read. And we see when we talk about these are the heads of the households, and it mentions who the children of Kohath was Amram, and Amram married Yocheved, and they had Aaron and Moshe. We have to know that one of the hallmarks of the Jewish people is the normalcy of the Jewish lineage. Moshe was born not from the firstborn Reuven, not from the second Shimon, but from Levi the third. And even amongst Levi had 3 children, Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. Moshe comes from Kohath, not from the Bechor, but from the second one, okay? And even from Amram, he was not the firstborn, he was the secondborn. Normal human being, without any unbelievable inborn traits. He didn't have something unique other than the Jewish DNA to serve Hashem and to maximize his potential, which is exactly what he did. And that's why the Torah tells us these are human beings. Rabbi Osai, I want you to remember this, because we're living in a season where, you know, people talk about the so-called God of the Christians, and perfect. He's a son of God. And the leaders of the Catholic Church, even if they weren't perfect, by the time they become Pope, they are perfect. The claim to perfection is the sign of falsehood. The Torah is openly stating that Moshe Rabbeinu was just a mere human being, born of a mother and father, just like every one of us is born of a mother and father. And just as the next generation, the generations after, are all born from mothers and fathers, and the Jewish people in all the history are just human beings, and yet we revere our leaders because they were able to maximize their potential. And our leaders revere the rest of the Jewish people and hold Klal Yisrael in the highest regard, because we all have the ability to maximize that potential. I've said it over and over again. Maybe I'll get the message. Of course, like Rabbi Yisrael Salanta said, when he gave a Musa speech once, and they asked him, who do you think is listening? He said, I'll tell you, even if there's only one person here listening, and that person is me, it's already worthwhile. So I'm not speaking at, but with, and together, we have to try to grow and be as best as we possibly can to maximize our potential, to become like Moshe and Aaron in utilizing that gift of life that Hashem gave us to be able to make the world a better place. I want to wish everyone a wonderful good Shabbos. It's a Shabbos.
Rebbe, I just want to say one thing.
comments,
I saw somewhere where they said Moshe and Aaron that everybody is equal, that everybody could reach the other guy's credentials and everybody can reach your potential. So everybody could be equal.
Okay, I hear that. Shiur Vaera.
Mordechai, you want to say Shabbos?
Ishkoyach Rebbe, a good Shabbos.
I just want to mention
Charles Bell.
that in the schus of all the learning we did tonight, it should be for the schus for Friedrich Schneider, for Nachum Mordechai Ben Ophira, and
Man, thank you, Rebbe.
for everybody else who needs a Yeshua, Hashem should grant it. We don't have
Amen.
I'm guaranteed
Amen.
the best we can. Okay, have a wonderful Shabbos.
Good Shabbos.
Shabbos.
Rebbe.
Have a great
Thank you.
Good Shabbos, everybody.
Shabbos.
Shabbos, right?
Shabbos, you're the best.
Tomorrow morning.
Oh, yes, the Shabbos, and tomorrow morning, of course, we are once again back for the Daf Hayomi. Please join us at 7 a.m. and at davening at 8 o'clock if you're in the neighborhood. Thank you so much. We need you for the meeting. Have a great Shabbos.
Okay. Shabbos.
Good Shabbos.
Okay, good night.
Shabbos, thank you. Shkoyach.
Shabbos.
Shkoyach, Rebbe.